I am Shabina Fatma. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to discuss about Criminal Procedure Identification Bill 2022. This bill basically replaced the earlier Prisoner Acts Bill 1920, and in this bill various new features are added and various old features of the Prisoner Acts bill are removed. So this Criminal Procedure Identification Bill will allow the police official to collect the data from any person. So the prisoner officers can now collect any data from any person, and these records can be kept for 75 years by NC National Crime Records Bureau, by NCRP. And now, according to this Criminal Procedure Identification Bill 2022, various loopholes of the Prisoners Act 1920 can be replaced. Now, when we talk about the Criminal Procedure Identification Bill 2022, let's talk about some of its points. We have to remember the 5 points when we talk about the Criminal Procedure Identification Act, because after President's assent it becomes act. From bill it becomes now act. So let's talk about Criminal Procedure Identification Act 2022. When we talk about this act, we have to consider the 5 points basically. Number 1, this act allow measurement. According to section 3 of this act allow measurements, means police official can take the handwriting sample or the any kind of biological sample or any kind of behavioral sample like the signature of any person, not only of a convicted person, but they can collect the sample from any person. Now this act will be applicable in India. Now, according to this act, magistrate can be metropolitan magistrate in metropolitan cities, and in cases of good behavior the magistrate can be executive magistrate. Now, when we talk about measurements, means this section 3 of the Criminal Procedure Identification Bill allow measurements. So what comes under these measurements? So police officials can take the finger impressions or the palm impressions, iris impressions or retina scan. They can collect the biological samples and they can do the analysis. Biological samples, they are not mentioning what comes under biological samples, but blood specimen, hair specimen, these all comes under biological samples. Now the police officials can collect the behavioral samples like the signature or the handwriting samples, or whatever is written in section 53 or 53A of CRPC is covered by this act. Now we are saying that police officer can collect the samples. So who is police officer? Police officer can be the head constable, and this taking of measurement is done according to section 3 of this act. Now, according to section 4 of this Criminal Procedure Identification Act, the National Crime Records Bureau can collect these samples for 75 years. You can imagine such long period. The NCRB can collect these data for 75 years. But in some cases, like when all the disputes are resolved or the person get acquitted, then NCRB can destroy those samples also. So the National Crime Records Bureau can collect and record these samples, store these samples for 75 years according to section 4 of this act. Now the section 5 of this act gives the power to the magistrate. Means the magistrate can direct a person to give measurements. It means the magistrate can give order, and in some cases the persons resist, he or she don't want to give samples. So when the resistance come, they don't want to give sample, this is dealt in section 6 of Criminal Procedure Identification Act 2022. But what happened in resistance cases, when the crime is against any women or against a child, the person cannot resist. Means then it becomes mandatory for a person to give sample. In other cases, in other kind of crime, he or she can refuse, but in cases of crime against women or child, he or she cannot resist. Or in some crimes where the punishment is more than 7 years, he or she cannot resist, he or she cannot deny. And in cases of resistance by such persons, they will face punishment according to section 186 of Indian Penal Code. Means they are obstructing the public servant and they have to face the 3-month imprisonment or fine. So according to this act gives so much power to police official, and in cases of resistance, this act provides punishments to those persons according to section 186 of IPC. So this act is much better than the Prisonees Act 1920 in some points, but this act violates the Article 20 subclause C, subclause 3, because according to Article 20 subclause C, no one can give evidence against himself or herself. And this act allows police official to take samples from any person, irrespective of he is a criminal or not. Police official can take the samples, and in these cases, the magistrate can give the magistrate has the power to order to collect samples from any person. But in cases of earlier Prisonees Act 1920, the samples were collected from the convicted persons only. And in this case, what happened when the person is arrested for any petty offenses like for theft or some kind of minor offenses, and when he or she is denying that they don't want to give samples, the magistrate will order and police official will collect the samples. So this is also one kind of right. This is also a violation of right to privacy. This is also a violation of right to equality, because you are collecting the samples from any person. Sometimes you are collecting the sample for offenses. You are collecting DNA sample. For example, you are collecting DNA sample and the person is convicted for theft. So what is the relation between collection of DNA sample and the offense of theft? There is no connection. So sometimes data misuse is also an issue. Data privacy of a person is also an issue. So right of privacy is one of the factor, but according to this act, the criminals which are arrested for heinous offenses, they will not escape in any manner, because this act will catch those criminals very easily in an efficient manner. So every act has its positive and negative aspects. So this act has also such kind of thing. So this is all about the Criminal Procedure Identification Bill 2022. So friends, this is all about today. If you like the video, then please do like, share, comment and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Jai Hind.